Et voilà. Bonjour Pierre. Après 6 années, on est ensemble parmi le logiciel, en français un peu.
Bonjour Ovidiu, je suis ravi de te revoir. Je garde un souvenir très ému, un très très bon souvenir de la conférence européenne de thérapie narrative que tu avais organisée à Iași il y a 6 ans. Et je suis très heureux de pouvoir m'entretenir avec toi et par ton intermédiaire avec l'ensemble des participants et des participantes de cette nouvelle conférence que je salue très amicalement depuis la France, très amicalement et très chaleureusement.
I'm switching to English, but I
OK.
wanted to hear your French voice and la chaleur de la langue française and the warmth of the French language that we love so much in Romania. We are in a national conference. We will speak mostly Romanian, but hopefully most of Romanians understand a lot of English and some French. Now,
Unlikely French people, unlike just the opposite as French people who understand only French.
Well, now, of course, I will have this tendency to think in French and speak in French now because here you are, and it's nice for me to get in resonance with you and the culture. At the same time, I'm inviting you to just openly say a few sharings, a few ideas, a few feelings about your relationship with a narrative approach, personal and professional, and an example or two. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to present myself a little bit. I am 60. I'm living in the southwest of France, in a little city near the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. And I am a professional coach, which means that originally I am a business person. I have an MBA, and I don't have a training as a therapist or as a psychologist, but as more in business and economics. I have begun to work with top executives a long time ago, since I am one of the oldest coaches in France. I began when I was 30, which means 1989. So I suppose that most of the people who are in the room right now were probably not born or were very, very little. I am also a musician, as you can see behind me. I have a bunch of guitars, and I'm also a writer. I write poetry and books on professional development, and also I wrote a novel. So at the time when I met narrative approach, or when narrative approach met me, I had 3 lives: a life as a coach, a life as a musician and songwriter, and a life as a writer. So it was a very separated life, because on the one side there was the coaching life, which was in business and making money with it, and on the other hand, my life as an artist and a poet. And so one of my friends told me that if I didn't know at all about Michael White or David Epstein or narrative therapy, I never heard of it. And one of my friends told me that, oh, you could be interested in narrative therapy, because you have 3 lives. You could have only one. You could melt. You could melt down all of your 3 lives to make one. And so my very first workshop was in 2005 with Sue Mann and Shona Russell, who were very close co-workers of Michael White. And after that, Michael came twice in France, in 2006 and 2007. And I completely fell in love with the narrative ideas and narrative practices, because it's well, between colleagues, but it is a powerful, it is respectful, it is very poetic, and it is very open to literature and writing. So I studied, I trained in France, and after that I left to go to Australia. And in 2008, in November 2008, this was my first stay in Australia, in Adelaide, in the Dulwich Center. And it was a bit particular because you probably remember that Michael White passed away in April 2008.
Yes.
And so this was November. So this was the very first narrative conference, narrative therapy conference without Michael. And all the community was mourning Michael, and there has been incredibly moving memorial for Michael, where David Epstein he spoke, he made a magnificent speech, and he was speaking about the loving eye, Michael's loving eye. And after that, I continued to study, to train to narrative practices with David Epstein, who was my supervisor and my mentor, and I have a huge debt to him. And my main influences, I have only attended 2 workshops with Michael, because after that he passed away very too early, of course. And my main influences are David Epstein and David Denborough, of course, who is the inventor of narrative songwriting. So I was trained to write songs and play music narratively with the words and expressions of the clients. And and since then I've been working only with narrative ideas. And I'm very, very happy with that. So I created a school in France, which is called La Fabrique Narrative. It was in 2009 when I came back from Australia and realized that there were so many ways to work with narrative ideas. And I wanted to share that with my community, with my colleagues. And after that, well, I was not able anymore to work. It had a very powerful effect on me, on my life. I mean, these ideas are, at first, you bring these ideas into your own personal life. And my son, Sam, he was 6 or 7 at the time. And I said he was the youngest narrative therapist in the world, because when I was telling him that he did bad things, so I was angry about him, he would say, "Dad, it's not me who did wrong. It's the problem. You don't have to speak to me. Speak to the problem, because I am not the problem." And he was 7, you know. So I think narrative therapists have a particularity. It is that their particular posture, you know, it infiltrates in your life, and you have to incarnate these ideas and this, what David Denborough calls radical respect. Which was a bit difficult for a business coach, because the big corporations where I work, I'm coaching top executives, CEOs, and these big corporations, they are not really respectful to their workers and executives. So I had to completely redesign my way of working. Doing coaching with big companies, it raises a lot of ethical issues. And we really had to think. Well, I have an anecdote. When Kiwis, New Zealand people like David Epstein, he didn't know at all about coaching. David Epstein, he is an anthropologist at the origin, and then he's a family therapist. And when I was struggling to explain to them what is coaching means, going along with companies, corporations, and helping people to be more efficient, and at the same time to have a better feeling of their professional lives and professional development. So I was trying to explain that to David and Anne, his wife, and she went, "Oh, okay, I think I understand what you do. It is like at the time of the Romans with the galleys, and you are the guy who massages the shoulders of the rowers in the galleys when they hurt, and it's horrible. It's an horrible metaphor for me, because it means that not only our work is useless, but we are accomplices with power and privilege, the economic power and privilege. So we had to redesign completely our way of working with narrative ideas, because what do you do when you bring narrative ideas, which are the most beautiful, the most generous ideas in the world? And these ideas were designed for communities, with difficulties, with predicaments, with suicides, or illness or poverty. And the idea of narrative approach is social justice. What can there be as a social justice in big multinational corporations in the capitalist world? So we really had to think about what we do, and we crafted a specific ethics, which is I guess, the only ethical code which is composed only by questions. And this is the ethical code for narrative practitioners. And I will send it to you if some people in your community are interested in this code. It's translated, it's in French and in English. We don't have a Romanian translation for the moment.
We will do it.
But please do it, because
we
this is one of the characteristics of narrative practices, is this very generous way of sharing knowledge, which is open source. So I would be very happy that this code, this ethical code for narrative practitioners would be practiced and interesting in Romania.
I can give you a picture of what you draw in my eyes, inner eyes, while speaking. Shortly, I was I'm seeing that in a way explaining this tension of coming with narrative ideas in the specific relationships with power and certain importance and efficiency and profit of big corporations. You faced that, and that in a way you had to invent, you had to propose, you had to invite these people and organizations in a sort of rehumanizing ways, in reconnecting ways to important values and principles of humanity, which somehow are in tension with the principles of economy, of profit, and separation. And I think that's kind of visible in what you say. And also you say that sharing knowledge is characteristic of narrative ideas and narrative practice. And this is kind of open source. And I was immediately connecting with the idea of, yes, it's open source and it's shared celebration. And it's creating communality and community. That's how you brought me with your descriptions.
Thank you for that. And I would like to finish with only one little information that you already know, that I have a very special relationship with Romania. Since my grandmother, she came from Romania. She came from Chisinau. In 1925, a little bit less than one century ago. And so I have a very very specific, very strong relationship with your country, because this is the origin of my family. So
So it
I'm
is no wonder. It is no
whenever
wonder
you
we are
ask
in
me,
touch.
yeah, and whenever you ask me something, I just come and I say, I run. I say, okay. So I would like to wish you a very nice, very
Thank
good
you.
conference.
Merci.
And I'm sure that all you have a very nice community, very wonderful team around you, Ovidiu, and also a nice community in Romania, because you did a lot of work to gather all this community and to have the narrative practices well known in Romania, which is very subversive. So few years after communism. So
Oui, 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 oui.
I'm a very I have a great great acknowledgement to you
Merci.
personally and to your community. So
Tu réponds maintenant, je parle français de nouveau parce que c'est le fin de notre entretien. Je te réponds maintenant à une réflexion que j'ai eue des semaines auparavant sur le point que mon génération, qui ont été éduqués dans le communisme, mais on a en effet vivre après, on a une sorte de mission de créer des ponts et de faire des valeurs de notre communauté, les valeurs de la culture, les valeurs humaines, d'être possible, de continuer. Donc, je crois que c'est une réponse de cette mission que j'ai vue dans mon génération, le rôle de ma génération. Merci beaucoup, Pierre.
merci Ovidiu, et bonne, très très bonne conférence à tout le monde.
Merci beaucoup.
Et à bientôt.
Au revoir. À bientôt. À bientôt.